The Aquest Podcast, Funds Industry Conversations.
Hello podcast listeners, and welcome to this episode of the Aquest Podcast with me, Danny Lawler. If you're new to the Aquest Podcast, do hit like and subscribe, and feel free to share with your friends too. In this episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Bernadette Nulty, who works in the International Financial Services team at IDA Ireland. Now, IDA Ireland is a national organisation that is there to support new firms looking to establish in Ireland and to help international firms that have a presence in Ireland to grow and develop. So the IDA really is at the forefront of seeing new trends around the types of firms that are locating in Ireland, and also for existing firms, the types of developments and innovations that they're trying to make to grow and develop their footprint in the country. So I was really interested to chat with Bernadette about what those trends are. What types of firms are they seeing interested in locating in Ireland? What are existing firms doing? Where are they spending their time and their money? And Bernadette was really generous in sharing her insights into what it is that firms are doing, where they're directing their attention, what kind of innovations they see as being at the forefront. Also talked to us a little bit through the plans for the IDA up to 2029 and how they're planning to continue to carry out their mission here in Ireland. So thank you very much to Bernadette for her time in the podcast and her insights and all of the knowledge she's able to share with us. And with that, let's get on with the show.
The Aquest Podcast, Funds Industry Conversations.
Hi Bernadette, you're very welcome to the Aquest Podcast. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Danny. Thanks for the invitation.
I wanted to chat to you about the IDA and about the way that the IDA supports, particularly, I guess, in Ireland, financial services companies, right, who are interested in locating into Ireland, and the types of ways that the IDA can help to get that up and running and then help them once they're already here. So you're going to tell us all about that.
Yes, look forward to it.
Tell us a little bit about the IDA generally, though. Let's start with that, because we might have listeners who aren't familiar with it.
Okay, so IDA is a government state agency, and IDA has been in business for 75 years. And essentially our role is to attract foreign direct investment into Ireland and then encourage them and support them as they grow and scale. So it's not a case of companies coming in and then that's it. It's a long-term view, and we have a long-term relationship with all of our clients. Many have been here for multiple decades. So the role is wide and varied. We operate in a number of key sectors, of which financial services is the division that I work in. And we recently launched our new strategy called Adapt Intelligently, which will see us through up until the end of 2029. And essentially that gives us a clear runway, if you like, for the next couple of years, giving backdrop of a lot of protectionism and change that's going on in the world. And our strategy is focused on 4 key areas, all of which are really relevant to financial services. And the first one is on strengthening long-term investments, keeping what we have, retaining what we have, renewing what we have, and making sure it's fit for the future. The next part is on scaling cutting-edge innovation, which is essentially the research and development and innovation agenda, and ensuring that companies, that the work that they're involved with in Ireland is future-looking. The other part is on driving sustainable change, kind of in renewables and new technology. And then finally on maximising regional opportunities, which is a really important part of the financial services sector in Ireland, which is, while it has started in the IFSC in Dublin, it is very much a national industry, and all corners of Ireland are impacted in a positive way by the sector.
Absolutely. It very much is all across the island at this stage. And I guess as an Irish citizen living here, we're very familiar with Ireland's success in terms of attracting foreign investment. And I guess even a lot of people outside of Ireland would be quite familiar that Ireland has a big FDI sector. IDA must be very good at what they do. What is it that the IDA does that is, that really resonates with firms that are looking to locate here, that makes them come and then makes them stay?
So we hear from a lot of our clients that IDA's offering is quite unique globally. So we act as a concierge service, essentially, one-stop shop. We have a global network, so we have offices all over the world, from the west coast of the US right across through Asia to in Shanghai and Tokyo. So we work in a triage system, if you like. So we've got our overseas colleagues who are on the ground promoting and marketing Ireland. Then we've got a footprint of teams based in Ireland, both in an operation division and in regional offices. So we work with our clients both at an overseas level and at a local country management level. And the support we give is really, really broad. So at different stages of the investment cycle, a company may be unfamiliar with Ireland, for example. So they're doing a lot of research and due diligence on various jurisdictions. We can support them with requests for information, data points, costs, talent availability, support with the regulator, access to other professional services bodies, for example. Property is a big part of the IDA offering as well, where we can do anonymized searches on behalf of a client who is looking for a new office or looking for land to build a new office, for example. So it's very broad. So we're very much a facilitator. We are very well networked within the wider ecosystem. So this is something we've been doing for many years. So typically we know who those companies should be speaking to get the very best advice to establish here.
So it's a very broad range of supports that you can provide, and whether that's networking into local firms or whatever. And when firms then do take the plunge to establish in Ireland, I guess we all have our idea as to what it is that makes them choose Ireland, but you're kind of at the coalface. Have you a sense for what it is that gets a firm over the line and they give the green light to establishing in Ireland?
So the initial establishment for a new name company that was never in Ireland before, sometimes it's based on their prior knowledge, or it could be an executive that has worked in a company before that has done business in Ireland before. But ultimately the reasons boil down to a couple of different factors, and access to talent is probably the most important one. Not necessarily the costs anymore, because, Ireland as a location, we compete throughout the European Union, so from a cost perspective, it would be quite similar. But from a talent and access to global expertise, and we have that in Ireland. Many of the client companies that we have here, the execs that work here have international experience already. They've either worked abroad or they've worked in companies that have that international experience. So they're bringing that depth of experience, and particularly in the investment management space where it's highly regulated, having experience in dealing with the regulator is something that's really important as well. So having access to that talent is important. Other parts of the decision-making process as well is understanding what peer companies are here already. Okay. And that's something that we would do as well. We introduce companies that quite often compete, but they're very happy to speak to new potential investors coming in, because it's all part of that cluster development, which is particularly important in a regional location, but the general ecosystem development, because policy and pro-business, pro-enterprise policy is really important. A lot of work happens at Department of Finance level, so having a collective voice to lobby on behalf of the industry is always really important. So that depth of experience, the fact that it's been done before, gives companies that comfort that this is a safe place to do business. It's a robust place to do business. They can get the good talent, and it will be a success.
It certainly doesn't happen by accident. So I wonder then, with the cluster effect, and obviously the IDA has been around a little while, and we have certain clusters across things that we think about pharma and tech and financial services. I guess it makes it harder maybe for other jurisdictions to try and repeat what we've done. But at the same time, you can't rest on your laurels. And I know, obviously, with all of the success, and you look at challenges that brings, you think, oh, well, maybe now is the time to just consolidate and not look for more. But it seems to me you always have to be driving on. You have to be, because if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. And I guess that's maybe where the new strategy informs that. But is that the way that you think about it? That you have to be moving forward?
Absolutely. We cannot afford to be complacent. And as part of our strategy implementation, we have key metrics that we publish, and we publish our results as well. But in terms of the targets, we have targeted like 7 billion in RD&I investments, 40,000 upskilling. So in terms of talent development and training, 75,000 new jobs, and 1,000 new investments, of which 55% will be based in regional locations. So it's certainly, we have to run very fast to keep up. And part of the talent development is a key part of the current implementation of the strategy. So it's transformation in the broadest sense. And that can involve either research and development, bespoke projects, and or talent development. And we find from talking to companies that this doesn't always exist in other subsidiaries. So by the nature of financial services, they will be doing continuous professional development training all the time as part of their regulated fiduciary responsibilities. And IDA doesn't seek to replicate or double down on that BAU type training. Where we are looking at opportunities for growth is in the pioneering technologies for the future wave of investments. So, for example, we are supporting companies in cyber and in AI and in quantum and really kind of new pioneering frontier technologies. And our clients are saying to us that this doesn't necessarily exist in other subsidiaries. So it is quite a unique offering that Ireland can provide to its clients, and IDA walks with the companies through every step of the way in terms of identifying the course contents, because it's bespoke for the company. What we have noticed in recent years as well is that while the content is developed here in Ireland and the trainees are based in Ireland, global deployment of that content can happen as a result of those projects being initiated in Ireland. So it has been initially unintended consequences, but it's been a very positive benefit by leading out on these programs, because even the content development is not necessarily off the shelf. It's a case of working with private providers in whatever the particular subject matter is, working with the local university and research base here in Ireland, which is really, really strong, particularly in those areas of technologies. The research centres like ADAPT and CEDAR, they can adjust their content depending on who is the recipient. So, for example, at board level, the requirements are very much about governance and oversight, for example. And then as you go down through an organisation from director right down to data analysts, etc., they can get into more detailed, can be right up to PhD and postdoc type training, or it can be micro training. So what we do is we support the clients with a range of options and content that enables delivery across the entire workforce. So companies like Mediolanum and Citco have spoken quite openly about the experience that they've had, and it's great for career development for, employees as well. It shows visibility at corporate level that Ireland has its finger on the pulse in terms of the future technologies that will be important for the growth of the company as well. So it's something that we are seeing a lot of, and it is part of our strategy, and we've gotten off to a good start this year already.
Yeah, and
2025.
So those kind of supports in those areas you mentioned there, cyber and maybe AI, they sound like they're for existing firms that are looking to grow and develop, and I guess make sure they're at the cutting edge. And the supports then is that for bespoke sessions that are prepared for a particular client company, or is it kind of university programs that are designed around where you see emerging needs, or maybe it's both?
So it's a combination of both.
Right.
It's a combination of both. Essentially, and as I mentioned, part of our strategy is that 40,000 people will be upskilled over the duration of this strategy. So that's everybody within the company, from board right through all employees. So we work with companies to identify what that pathway might look like. So there's different ways to get to that journey. So, for example, we have a scorecard. So it's like a 360-degree view of the company that they complete themselves. So it assesses their maturity, if you like, from an innovation perspective or from a digitalization perspective, and highlights in a very neat kind of traffic light system where the areas for opportunity may lie. And once those gaps are identified, we then support them with where they can access that content. We always do these exercises with the corporate strategy in mind. We don't do this in isolation. So typically we're looking at the corporate strategy, we're mapping the capability and the capacity of the Irish subsidiary, and our job essentially is to work with local management here in Ireland to narrow that gap. So it's very much connected globally, and having that corporate buy-in is really important. So typically at executive committee level, they would have visibility of what the plan is for Ireland, and it's multifaceted. As I mentioned, with the university system, the research system, local fintech providers as well, actually, of which there are so many here in Ireland, both Irish-owned and foreign-owned companies that are here as well.
Yeah.
So it's that entire mix to give the entire offering that is required to upskill the workforce over a maybe 2-year plan.
And I guess from an employee perspective, I don't think I've ever seen a firm where employees don't want training and don't want to learn, and hopefully you add strings to their bow so that they can progress through their careers and feel like there's something in it for them. So a win-win then, from that perspective. And outside of the kind of education side thing, I guess research must be an important part of what firms are doing, whether they're financial services or other sectors. Is that something that the IDA gets involved in supporting?
Yeah, absolutely. And typically in the financial services sector, people would have joined with a background, say, in finance or in accounting, but they're very much subject matter experts. They're very experienced in dealing with their clients, with dealing with the asset managers, with dealing with the regulator. So it's a very condensed area of expertise. From a research and development perspective, this is an area that we've seen a lot of growth in this sector, probably in the last 18 months. So other industry sectors like technology and life sciences have been doing this for many decades. Like the R&D tax credit came into Ireland in 2003, and it's been very well utilised by other industries. Recently, we have noticed, and it's probably because of the emergence of AI. Now, AI has been here for a long time. There's companies that have been heavily involved with it for the last 10 years. But for a lot of companies in financial services, and particularly in investment management, it is an area that's ripe from a growth opportunity perspective. So companies know that they need to do something in AI. Now, maybe it's on operational efficiencies. It could be using the existing data sets that they have, because obviously they're sitting on a huge bank of data with all of the value of the trades that are transacted. So it's a case of identifying either an opportunity again for growth or an opportunity for improvement, while always considering that efficiencies shouldn't come at the cost of resilience from a regulatory perspective. So how we come up with those projects is very much having tech-to-tech conversations. We have our own internal technology advisor in the financial services division in IDA, and those conversations happen at CISO level, CTO or CIO level. And again, it's understanding the corporate technology roadmap of the company and mapping it back to where that competence and capability sits in Ireland. We've had some huge successes in this area in recent years, and Fidelity Investments would be a company, for example, that's been really leading the charge in this space. They've got their FCAT here in Ireland. They're based in City West in Dublin. They're based in Galway. And a lot of the technologies that they've been working on over the last 10 plus years are now becoming mainstream, be it in cloud or be it in AI. And now they're focusing on things like quantum computing, for example, and would have been heavily involved in the recent launch of Quantum Ireland in April. And State Street, for example, set up their global cybersecurity hub in Kilkenny, which was opened last year. And again, that's showing the depth of experience that is here in a wide range of technologies. But with the R&D, the overlap between two really strong industrial sectors in Ireland, both technology and financial services, that interconnectivity is really bearing fruit at the moment, because the skills are available, and we're seeing people who have previously worked in firms like, be it IBM or be it Google, Meta, etc., are now joining large financial institutions that have been in business for hundreds of years globally, and they're bringing a new lens of innovation. So from an Irish perspective, the opportunity really is fantastic. And from an IDA perspective, we're seeing a lot of progress in this area. Yeah. So how companies come to us, it varies.
Yeah.
It varies.
And it's funny you mentioned about the massive amounts of data that regulated firms have. And from a regulator perspective, you think back to the financial crisis, and a lot of new rules were introduced about reporting of information and data to central bank, often for onward transmission to central regulators like ESMA. And one of the, I guess, aspirations from a regulatory perspective is that firms, in producing and collating and gathering this data and submitting it, that they would at some point actually benefit and use that data to analyze their own business, rather than simply gathering it to send it into the central bank. So you're looking at stress testing, and you're looking at trading and everything else to see what can we learn about our business, and this movement then to use AI and other tech solutions then, and to really grasp their data and try and squeeze something out of it, is, I guess it just is starting. It's that bearing fruit. That idea that you've got all this data. Let's make more use of it.
Exactly, and we supported BNY with a project exactly in that space, and they announced it in 2023. This global AI hub. Again, it's using the vast amount of data that they have access to make predictions for the future based on past performance, for example. So using that as an asset in its own right has proven very interesting from an opportunity for the companies that we are working with.
And so when you look across the financial services sector generally, and you look at the kind of activity and the firms that are interested in coming to Ireland, are there particular areas in that are more active than others? And also, we chat about financial services and technology and the interaction, and that, immediately it springs to mind firms involved in digital assets and, the markets and crypto assets regulation is just coming through and deadline for the end of the year for licenses. Is that a sector as well that you're seeing activity in, or where is it happening?
So broadly speaking, from a financial services perspective, the biggest growth areas in the fintech and payments sector, because just that the consumer demands have changed so quickly. And a lot of this is enabled by new legislation that's coming, as you mentioned rightly, in terms of MiCAR also. So we're seeing companies like MasterCard and Stripe and Fiserv all involved in really interesting innovation projects at the moment. What's interesting as well on the investment management space, because MiCAR is essentially the MiFIDization of digital assets, companies that have experience in MiCAR, who are going through that process, who have had MiFID experience already, are used to the regulatory process that's needed and required for it. So it's that blend of cluster development where it's the entire value chain, especially from a digital assets perspective. So it's the crypto natives, it's the institutional investors. So this year will be very timely to see. We already had the first MiCAR approved recently, of course. Right. That's a very exciting area. And I think the applications for the wider industry, obviously the asset managers will play a role, but the tokenization of funds as well is another area where we're seeing a lot of potential growth and discussion about use cases and how that can be used in the future to make transactions safer and faster and more transparent. So that it will be the next frontier for this industry as that becomes more prevalent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right in terms of what I'm seeing. It is kind of in the payments and the fintech space where I do see a lot of activity. Not but funds obviously is a very large industry here and it continues to always develop. But I just feel that those are the two areas where there's a little bit more activity or more exciting activity. And then when it comes to crypto and digital assets, definitely with MiCAR coming in at the end of the year. And tokenization of funds, it's a term that's been around for a little while, and I guess it is time for that to start landing. And I feel that that's something we're going to see more of very soon.
And there is expertise in the area of digital ledger technology, which is the backbone of how that will be implemented. So it's just a matter of bringing the technology and the regulatory opportunity together, because certainly the commercial benefits will be there, but I guess it'll take some time.
And so when you look forward then to the work programs for the next period and the challenges, you're obviously very busy. There's a lot going on and big plans for into the future. Where are the speed bumps that you see? Is it to do with AI, kind of taking up some of the capacity that would otherwise be performed by people, or where do you think the risks are in Ireland's continued growth?
I think the AI opportunity is interesting because it is enabling growth, but of course it may impact in terms of employment as well. But typically when we are talking to our clients about enabling programs that are linked to AI, it benefits the company in its broader sense. Asset management, the business is very much a people-focused business. It's very much based on relationships, particularly in more complex fund structures as well, like alternatives and new kind of private markets, for example. So I think AI will enable a more efficient, smarter industry for the future. But it is important, as we said earlier, that the skills are matching that future demand, because the industry still uses a lot of Excel spreadsheets. It's still very manual in some aspects, still transactional. But I think AI will benefit the future direction and growth of the industry, and that's where it's going globally. And that's why it's just so important for us to double down on this, the talent development, and to ensure that companies have the skills for the future to enable that growth. And that's our job, to support companies that they will be here in the long term. We have a long-term view of the world, and we want these companies to stay here. Like a lot of the companies in the portfolio, for example, have been in Ireland for 25 plus 30 years, like BNY and State Street and BlackRock, and they're continuing to grow. A lot of them are doing more complex mandates than they would have been doing when they set up here originally. So it's that continuous evolution is really important. And that's the same in terms of how other sectors have evolved in Ireland as well. We can't stay still. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, and I think it is probably why all those sectors have thrived in Ireland, is that their Irish operation has, certainly financial services, has had that interest in growing and developing and contributing to because generally these are the international groups, so continuing and adding value to the international group. It's not there just to do whatever it was set up to do and no more, that they're very have the heads up looking to see where they can add to what they do to create value for the organization. And I think that's why they've been so successful, because they've put themselves in a place in international groups where they are an important revenue generating source. And as long as that continues, I guess we've a lot to look forward to.
Mm-hmm. And they're global businesses. Like the distribution is all over the world. It's obviously European focused, North American, but increasingly Asia Pac and Latin America are part of the distribution strategies for a lot of the asset management companies that are here as well. And that gives huge breadth of experience across the board. But the strategic focus is really, really important, and so that companies are not operating in isolation here in Ireland. And IDEA offers other sort of strategic supports as well. So the Strategic Talent Development Programme is one such programme, and also Leading with Strategic Intent. And that's to enable local management here to have those difficult conversations when there's a mobile investment up for grabs, if you like. So it's having the tools to win those new mandates with our support. And those programs that I just mentioned are mentor-led, and they're output-driven, and they're bespoke. So a mentor works with the company on their roadmap for growth here in Ireland with an eye on corporate strategy, and just marries the two with the view then to having a project for focus from an output perspective. So that has worked really well, and that can lend itself then to be it our training supports or be it our research and development, for example. So there's lots of different start points where we can have those funding conversations, but typically that's at the downstream, the early stage strategic conversations, the idea generation. That's really where IDA is playing a very important role now, having those conversations in a triage system with the local management here and in HQ. And we spend a lot of time traveling to the parent companies of our client companies here as well, just to support the efforts here and to give that support, if you like, from an Irish government and from an Irish ecosystem perspective as well. It works very well.
Yeah, and actually delivering that strategic support to the Irish management in terms of how they work and interact with the group, that's quite clever. I see the IDA are good at what they do.
Yes, and we work in partnership with them. It's a very collaborative approach. Every client, and you get to know your clients very well. They all have a different culture. Like I've built really strong relationships with the clients that I work with, and they of course move on and can join different companies. So it's a constant iteration of growth and evolution. And you find that the Irish ecosystem is always very open, warm and friendly to supporting the efforts that IDA provides, because you've got the Department of Finance, and you've got all of the peer companies, the asset managers, the fund servicing companies, and then a huge depth of expertise in the professional services companies from a tax and legal advisory perspective. And the industry associations are really active and really supportive as well. So it's very much a team-based approach, and we're very well connected across that entire ecosystem. And there's plenty of room for more new entrants, actually.
Good to hear.
Yeah, I'm just back from Monaco actually at the Fund Forum, and it was interesting talking to new potential asset managers who are doing an appraisal of the jurisdiction to enter. But they're also looking at other jurisdictions. It's highly competitive, but that's really important for new asset managers coming in. Some of them are smaller, they're boutique, they're specialist, be it in sustainable finance, in Article 8, Article 9 type fund structures. But again, they're very important to support the rest of that ecosystem because they all live and thrive of new entrants coming in. And we've had some nice new entrants coming in recent years, like Athena and Impacts and Guinness Global Investors as well in this year. So it's there's always room for more because there's always ebbs and flows in this industry. So it's important that the new entrants are still welcomed in.
Well, it's great to hear that those new entrants are still arriving because obviously we're quite an established and mature industry at this stage, and we have a lot of the players here already. But to wrap up, then you might just tell us what's the best way for a firm to get in touch with the IDA? What's the best way to reach out to you guys?
The best way to reach out is have a look at our website. Give me a link on LinkedIn, Bernadette Nulty. Happy to engage with them. We get leads from all sorts of different sources. Obviously, we're in market. We attend a lot of conferences. We host our own bespoke events actually throughout the year based on different thematics. We're partnering with Irish Funds in September to do an event here in Dublin. And again, it's to showcase the supports that are on offer. And then we have case studies. It's always useful to hear directly from the clients the journeys that they've had. It all varies so much. And then the real value after that is the one-to-one conversations. The real value that we have is with the bilateral conversations that we have thereafter to figure out where is the opportunity or where is the challenge and how can we support the client locally here to make sure that any obstacles can be overcome or that any new mandates that are potentially up for winning in the future, that they can put the best foot forward. There's loads of supports available. There's funding available, and we support with that whole idea generation piece as well, because we're used to dealing, we've got a bird's eye view of the industry. We're in quite a lucky position. So we get to have these strategic under the bonnet conversations across the board with the client base. And there's a lot of learnings that can be applied where we operate on a very confidential manner with our clients on a one-to-one basis. There's a lot of thematics that can be applied across the board. And that's really where we're seeing growth. And when companies go public and make an announcement about whatever their investment is, that it garners a lot of interest. And we hear back that it supports them with their business development. It supports them with their recruitment, especially for companies that are traditionally considered to be a bank, because now they're pivoting to be something much more transformative. So we're doing a lot of work with the fund servicing companies. They're huge employers in Ireland, BNY, State Street, Northern Trust, Citco, and they're all really eager to innovate and add value to their clients, as in the asset managers. So it's an interesting time because the appetite is there for them to innovate, to satisfy their client needs. And yeah, there's a lot of supports there.
Great. Well, listen, thanks very much for coming on the show. I was really interested to learn more about IDA and more about the specifics of what it is that you do when you take the hand of a firm and trying to lead them through the process of establishing here and the supports that are available. So it's really useful. So thanks very much for your time. Appreciate that, Bernadette.
Thanks, Danny.
Well, thank you, listeners, and we'll catch you next time on the Aquest Podcast.
The Aquest Podcast, Funds Industry Conversations.